less calls and my voice wouldn't be quite so worn out by the end of the week here. But hey, I appreciate you guys all jumping on today. As Bill said, we're going to jump into a little bit of an explanation of Office 365 E5 for education. So what we're going to talk about today are the individual components, but actually really want to make sure that you guys understand sort of how these are grouped and logically why they all sort of work well together to help you build a secure, productive enterprise for you guys within your educational institutions. We'll talk a little bit about security and some of the components that are included there and how we can help to ensure that you're able to protect all of your users and your data within the Office 365 environment. We'll also dive into the analytics side of things a little bit and just talk about what are the components there and how we can help you guys to better utilize the data that you're generating and is flying at you all the time. And finally, with E5, the part we'll really dive into today in this particular call is around voice and the features that Skype for Business bring to us. And there's another component that didn't make this particular slide to announce to you guys. We'll get to that shortly. For right now, though, if it's okay with you guys, I'd like to get started off by handing the meeting over to my friend and colleague, Mr. Mark Dunkel, who has some special guests he'd like to introduce to us today.
So thanks, everyone. My name is Mark Dunkel. I'm a productivity specialist in the North Central region for U.S. education. I was in education for about 10 years, and then I did a brief stint over in the commercial side of the business. And one of the things that I wanted to make everyone aware of is one of the workloads that had a tremendous traction throughout the commercial business were a lot of the voice workloads. And so I wanted to talk to you and bring in a customer. So this is kind of a cross-customer vertical kind of Q&A here with a particular customer that had quite a lot of success with PST and conferencing and kind of laying the groundwork using some of the E5 suite to be able to roll out things like Cloud PBX, international and domestic calling in the future. So I want to thank, I'm going to be asking questions and be co-presented with Amy McClendon from Buckman International. She's a senior communication systems engineer over at Buckman, and I appreciate her taking the time out of her day to kind of educate our education customers about the value that they've seen via PST and conferencing Skype for Business within the organization. So, Amy, thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me.
So one of the things I'd like to, just so everyone's kind of aware a little bit about Buckman International and Laboratories, is tell us a little bit about Buckman, your size, your location, kind of your employee base, and what you do.
Okay, so Buckman is a chemical company that is based out of Memphis, Tennessee. We are a global organization, and we have about 1,800 users globally worldwide. We manufacture the chemicals that turn trees into paper, tissue, etc. Leather from cows. We have the chemical that makes that into purses, shoes, etc. As well as water treatment facilities and performance chemicals. So we provide a chemical that does chlorines within swimming pools. So what I basically do is, as you said, I'm the senior communication systems engineer. I'm also an Office 365 global admin, so I have primary responsibilities around the Office 365 suite, but lately my main focus has been Skype for Business. We are upgrading our antiquated telephone system with Skype for Business utilizing Cloud PBX.
Excellent. And so you're using Skype for Business. Can you explain some of the benefits that you receive, particularly with Skype for Business and with PST and conferencing, and how that's kind of helped your organization? What you're using in the past, kind of the journey between what you had, where you kind of landed, and any type of cost benefit or productivity gains that you received.
Oh, absolutely. So, like I said, we did have an antiquated phone system, Siemens, so we were just kind of, it was just a basic analog telephone that we had. We did not have any real true unified communication to quickly and easily chat with people across our organization. We actually had to pick up the phone and make a phone call. For conferencing, we were leveraging AT&T Connect. And the bills around AT&T Connect were anywhere between $2,000 to $5,000 a month. And again, that's a global expense. And if you average that over 12 months, you can easily see that the cost of that drastically increased. But what we have seen over the last year since we've implemented the PSTN conferencing is our AT&T Connect bill is down to 0. So we have leveraged the conferencing capabilities of the PSTN conferencing globally, which allows our salespeople to quickly and easily connect with the customers utilizing a Skype for Business meeting, or if the internet connectivity is bad, they can easily call into the Skype for Business meeting using the PSTN number. And then, of course, like I said, we upgraded our phone system to Skype for Business. So now we can easily, quickly chat with different people across the world globally without having to accrue any type of international charges or long-distance charges, et cetera.
Thank you. That's one of the things that I would just one of the messages that we've seen played out, Amy, over and over when I was in commercial, in terms of them rolling out PSTN conferencing. This particular workload, a lot of people were very excited about replacing maybe older PBX systems and going with international and domestic calling when I was in commercial. But one of the things that everyone seemed to say across the board is how much PSTN conferencing saved them immediately. So thanks for sharing that. From an organization, obviously from an organization standpoint, in particular your role being global and having such a remote workforce that is out there and being so diversified, your communication strategy is obviously very critical. So I want to thank you for trusting that particular workload with Microsoft. We very much appreciate it. But I'm curious, what are you most excited about kind of moving forward using Skype for Business and some of the new features that will be coming out?
So since we're a global organization, we're going to be rolling out Skype for Business at all of our locations. And what the things I'm most excited about is how Cloud PBX and Skype for Business is growing in the sense of PSTN calling. So what that means is in a small location or location, say Europe, in our case, we can actually turn on, quote unquote, the telephony aspect for our European office, leverage the PSTN calling plans in Europe, and then also with the co-location of data centers, I can home those users within Europe. And the value that we have behind that is I don't have to build a Skype for Business infrastructure at that location. I don't have to worry about server management, maintenance, how the calls are going, because all that is based in the cloud. And so now I can sleep peacefully at night here in Memphis, knowing that the call process over my Europe location is going to be solid. So that's one thing I'm real excited about.
Well, I will miss being on the in the education side and not working with you and Andy. I thank you for joining our call. I thank you for sharing your story with our education customers. If there's anything you need from me in the future, please let me know. And have a wonderful weekend and a wonderful day.
Thank you for your time. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. All right, Preston. And so that's Buckman Labs. Like I said, in SMSP and in the commercial side of the business, this was a wonderful, wonderful workload that many of our customers were deploying. Just wanted to share that story with you, and I'll kick it back to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Mark, and Amy, thanks for joining. And I apologize, Amy, but your loss is our gain. We really appreciate having Mark back on our team. We're super excited about the work that he's doing up in the North Central region for us. What I want to do here real quick is take you guys through a very brief kind of overview of what are the components inside of Office 365 E5, and then we're going to bring on another set of guests to help us better understand maybe how some of this technology is being utilized even within our educational institutions. But first, before we do that, I want to talk just a brief second about security. E5 is very focused on security, and Microsoft's approach to security really is kind of a three-pillar approach to it, where we talk about protect, detect, and respond. And as you guys have worked with your account teams and the various specialists that are on this call, you've probably heard us all talk about this. E5 is actually one of those great suites that brings to you components from each of these different realms to really help you build a solid security posture within your Office 365 environment. So what do I mean by that? Here are kind of the components of the E5 security portion. The first thing is advanced threat protection. If you guys haven't looked at this yet, it's something certainly worth your time to dive into. I have many of my customers who have already started using this, and I could probably pull a lot of you that are guests here today and have you give us some testaments to this particular component and what you've been able to do with it. And advanced threat protection essentially gives us the ability to protect your mailboxes and users from all of those unknown issues, right? Malware, viruses, things that we don't already have great signatures for, but also all of those web-borne threats, things like phishing scams and, crypto locker, those types of things. And so we use ATP to be able to make sure that we can rewrite all the URLs. Sorry, the echo's kind of disrupting me a little bit here too. If you're not speaking right now, if you don't mind, maybe mute yourself. It'll help reduce the likelihood that we have the echo feeding back to everybody. The second piece that we really have around security is advanced security management, or what we refer to as ASM on a regular basis. And ASM is really one of those just revolutionary sort of products if you haven't worked with it before. ASM is part of an acquisition we made some time ago that actually gives you the ability to utilize behavioral analysis and machine learning in the cloud to be able to identify any type of anomaly, abnormal usage, and will actually take and use some machine learning algorithms to determine whether or not those particular signals equate to what is likely a malicious activity. And so you can utilize that against any of your Office 365 content, but it also does a number of other things like helping you to determine what level of shadow IT you may be dealing with. And probably the coolest thing about it, here's the real challenge we all have with any kind of a system that does monitoring and reporting, is you first have to know what policy should I build? How should I put those together? One of the great things about ASM and the way that it works is it actually monitors your system over time for those anomalies and then is able to notify you of malicious activity, in which case you can then say, hey, it turns out that wasn't, or more likely, hey, from now on, anytime that occurs, notify me or disable that user's account. And so those are some of the things you're able to do there. Customer Lockbox is another feature that we've introduced that allows you to be able to be a real part of protecting your data from from anyone outside your organization. And what I mean by that is this. Microsoft has long since had a policy where we have what we call Lockbox internally. We have no access to your data. As a matter of fact, we've recently won yet another lawsuit against the federal government when they tried to get us to turn over customer data. It's not our data. We can't do that. And if you were to call support, and even if our engineers needed to access your data, you know that they would actually have to get multiple levels of permission from management to even be able to do that on a very time-limited basis. What Customer Lockbox does is put you as the last mile in that approval process. And essentially what happens is for anyone to access it, even on your behalf, you would actually have to go in and give them access to that for a limited time. It gives you full purview into that. And so it's a great thing for those people who are under very strict guidelines from federal government or other agencies. Please forgive my cold, I apologize. And finally, the last piece on within security that we want to talk about is advanced e-discovery. I won't spend a lot of time here, but I know for a fact, having worked in education myself even before coming to Microsoft, that all of us get hit for requests for information, right? These legal requests where we have to turn over tons of information. And we all know how expensive that can be, expensive in your own time and the equipment that it takes to be able to do that, but especially in the time and money that it takes to pay the legal counsel to go through those things. So advanced e-discovery actually brings some new capabilities beyond what you guys already have available to you as education customers in Office 365, to where you can do some things like, removing the duplicates, right, and rethreading the conversations. But really, we start getting around the predictive coding. That's very cool. How we can actually, as these things come in, you have the ability to look through each of the objects that have been found to determine whether that was relevant or not relevant. And as you are looking through it, you're actually training a machine learning model so that you only have to go through a small percentage of those objects before it can tell you with a great degree of certainty what's it really going to cost you to keep looking for more and more relevant objects so that you can control your expenses in an e-discovery process. The next thing that we really want to talk about around analytics or around Office 365 E5 is analytics. And there are a couple of components that we have added to that, which is the transform your company's data into rich visuals and analytics. What's that really talking about? What are we trying to get to here? Well, it turns out we have two components in particular. One is Power BI, which you guys all have available to you today. But when you step into the Power BI Pro license, you do get some additional capabilities for sure. You get the ability to connect to some additional on-prem data sources, which is a great component, but you also have the ability to build a single dashboard and share it out to everyone. So if you're using things like role-based security or role-based access to your data, it makes it very easy for you to build a single set of reports, a single dashboard, and publish it to everyone within your organization so that you don't have to go through it and mine for every time someone asks you for a new report, to ensure that they're getting only the data that they should be able to or are legally able to see. You get all those same rich visualizations that you would expect and that you've seen inside of Power BI that won't be compromised at all, but instead you're going to get all new capabilities with this. And of course, finally, there's the My Analytics. At one time, I think we referred to this as Delve Analytics, but that's because My Analytics really kind of started in that Delve window that you see over here on the right-hand side, where I could look at some of the things about how effective I was at communicating with people, how effective was I at managing my time, how many meetings am I in versus focus time, who am I communicating with? Who am I losing touch with? Those types of things were great. Now we've extended that beyond simply just Delve and brought it directly into like the Outlook client. Whether you're using the web client or the rich client, My Analytics does a fantastic job of giving you just-in-time information about who you're communicating with and how you're communicating with them. It's a wonderful component, and hopefully we'll get a chance to look more at that, if not today, in one of our future E5 calls. We encourage you guys to continue to join us. And then finally, the piece that we're really going to dive into today is around voice. So I'm not going to say a whole lot about these voice components. I'm going to make you guys wait just a little bit, because next up we're going to bring some more guests on, and then another colleague of mine is really going to dive into this who has far more knowledge of it than me. So we're going to just kind of step through it, and I'm just going to spill the beans here just a little bit, because we've had in E5 for a few months now the ability for you guys to use PSTN conferencing so that you can now have dial-in phone numbers to your conferences, just like the one you guys are on today, right? Many of you actually are dialed in through a phone system. You just called a number and got right in. With the E5 suite, you're going to be able to add that to all of your existing Skype meetings or to new meetings as you move forward. We also have the ability for you to use a full Cloud PBX. Skype for Business can function as your PBX without your on-prem box at all to do that, without that on-prem PBX. There's some other kind of cool things that we can do and talk more about, and I'll leave that to Victor here in a little while to dive into. PSTN calling is really around, those minutes, right? This is, hey, if I'm going to make outbound calls or have people call into an 800 number, anything of that nature, then, hey, I've got certain minutes that I've got to cover, and that's really where PSTN calling comes in. And we have some great plans specific to education to make that so it's both affordable and achievable for you right away. But today, the thing that I really wanted to spill the beans on, the thing that I'm most excited about coming from an education background and having talked to so many of you, is Skype meeting broadcasts. This is a fantastic tool that's now available to you guys in education that hasn't been historically, right? You can now broadcast to up to 10,000 different people during a single meeting. And guess what? They don't even have to have Skype for Business or a web plugin or anything. They're able to view that from a standard web browser. And you, as the presenter, or as somebody participating in that, you don't need to learn any new software at all. You're going to use your existing Skype for Business client so that the learning curve is all but non-existent for you. We're going to provide you with real-time video on demand. We're going to do all the transcoding and all that great stuff in the back with Azure. And of course, we're going to do the speech-to-text transcoding and translation in real time as well. So you can have closed captioning automated in real time during this broadcast, and the individuals who are watching can choose which language they want to see that captioning in. It's a fantastic feature. I love it. Super excited about it. You guys should be too. But right now, I'm going to take a break from telling you guys about any of that, and we're going to bring on my good friend Bob Williams, who's going to introduce some of his customers he's been working with and tell us a little bit of a story. So, Bob, over to you, buddy.
I appreciate it, Preston. So, good afternoon, everybody. So, today I'd like to introduce University of Pittsburgh. Got two gentlemen on the phone with me today, Travis Cornell. He's the project manager, and David Dungeon. So University of Pittsburgh has just started off with a deployment of Cloud PBX, at University of Pittsburgh. So I'd like to talk to them a little bit about that, see where they're at. So maybe if one of you from University of Pittsburgh, give us a little overview of what does University of Pittsburgh look like today? How many faculty and staff do you have? How many students? How many phones do you have out there deployed today?
Hi, this is Dave Dudgeon. So today at the University of Pittsburgh, we have our main campus and we have 4 regional campuses. And all told, we have probably 20,000 voice users at the university today. And of those users, probably about 15,000 or so are at our main university. And that system is a Avaya system. It's not an antiquated Avaya system. It's actually an up-to-date Avaya system. And we are in the process. We're just kicking it off. And actually this morning at 9 a.m., we just moved over our entire internal IT department to Skype for Business Cloud PBX.
Awesome. So the port order got finalized.
The port order got finalized, and all users were moved over.
That's beautiful. So, as you're looking at, Cloud PBX and Office 365 and Skype for Business, what's the long-term goal there for the University of Pittsburgh, with this technology?
So what we did is we had spun up a while ago, we had spun up a discovery project just to basically, take a look at our voice infrastructure today. We had just been incrementally upgrading our Avaya PBX. As we went along, something needed to be done, something went end of life. So we were just incrementally upgrading it without looking at the whole picture. And when we really started to dive in and look at it, we realized that, we hadn't moved along in technology as our users probably liked us to. We looked at it and we found out that about 80% of our users still had analog type devices. We weren't utilizing any IP telephony, even though the Avaya system was capable of it. So instead of just, without thought, upgrading the Avaya system and moving to IP telephony phones on the Avaya system, we decided to look at it, and we were looking for an entire unified communication system. We were looking for something that, our users could use remotely. They could use from home if they happen to be working there, and Skype for Business seemed to be a great fit.
Awesome. So, while deploying, the Cloud PBX, the end users, they all have a choice of really what type of devices they can use. They can use that traditional telephone set. They can use a headset. What are you seeing, and what are the users? What type of devices are they really, grasping onto and embracing during this deployment?
That's actually an interesting question. We anticipated when we first spun up this project that about 80% of our users would use a handset, and we selected the Polycom VVX 501. And then we expected about 20% would select our headset, which is a really nice headset. It's a Plantronics Voyager Focus UC. Mm-hmm. And as we moved our IT group over, we let everybody pick on their own which device they would like. And from our internal IT group, we found that about 50% wanted the actual handset and 50% wanted a headset. Now, it's going to be a little different when we actually roll out to every department, because there are going to be some considerations that those departments are going to have to make that may kind of force them into selecting a handset. So we may get closer to, our initial estimates, but right now we're about 50-50.
Okay. So a little bit different than your thoughts originally going in, because I often hear from, customers, they're not sure how the adoption would be on a headset type of, scenario. So that is interesting how, you're saying that, when you initially started off, you thought the percentage was going to be about 80-20, and actually after you started deploying, you found that they were 50-50. Right. So, that's really interesting. Appreciate that. Now, what are some of the benefits, that UPIT, believes that the end users are going to see, from moving to a unified communications platform, to improve their their workflows throughout the day.
Right. The biggest thing that we're really looking for is improved productivity by end users. And that's going to be pretty tough for us to gauge, but we'll be able to get reports on, how many meetings are set up, what kind of calls are going through, and then, a lot of it's going to be focus groups. We'll get people back together and kind of do a round robin and talk about, what issues they're seeing, what features they want to see. We're already doing that with a pilot group that we spun up, and they've been really instrumental in giving us feedback on, how our devices are working, what the call quality is like, how they're using the devices, and a good majority of them are really eager to get their departments out and be kind of the first adopters once we're ready to do that. So that's definitely a huge thing. Improved cost model is another big one for us. If we can go to a flat rate billing model versus, individual charges for long distance, international, conferencing, all that kind of stuff, that's going to be a huge win for the university. And then there are a few other kind of smaller benefits that we're going to see, hopefully. One of the things is our university right now has tons of different models of equipment out. So what we're doing is doing a one-for-one replacement with whatever phone device they have now with one of the selected devices that we're offering, and we're going to pay for that up front as part of this project. So we'll be able to troubleshoot better because it'll be consistent equipment. We'll be able to get our techs out there and trained better on what equipment's out there. So things like that are really going to pay off in the long run, I think, for us. And then another big one we're really hopeful on is better call quality. Our university is pretty old, and there are different parts of it that have different network capacity. So we're hoping that as we're deploying equipment, we are looking at our network and we are bumping it up to the highest standards possible, and making sure that everybody has equal footing when they're making calls, so they have good call quality.
I really appreciate the time today, Travis and David. Really thank you very much for sharing your project plan and sharing your project at the University of Pittsburgh with us today. And with that, I will hand it back over to Preston Piney.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you guys. That is fantastic. I love hearing that. I was just kind of joking around here in the background with some colleagues about just the handsets versus headsets. I can't remember the last time that I willingly used a handset with there was an option for a headset. So, I love hearing that that's beginning to kind of change for some of you guys as well. So I appreciate you guys going through that and being on the call with us today. It always helps out to really hear how are people using this stuff in the real world. And with that, I want to take a bit of a bit of a change here and just talk maybe slightly about what actually is in the Office 365 E5 suite versus the free suite that all of you have. And so the first thing I want to talk about is, you have the unlimited email. Essentially, you've got 50 meg or 50 gig mailbox sizes with unlimited archiving and exchange and all those great things, right? You've got calendaring, social video. You guys can read the slide. I don't need to go through it all, right? But one of the things that when you start really looking at what's inside of E5, it's those things I mentioned before, right? It's the advanced e-discovery, secure attachments through ATP, the URL rewrites that you're going to get, all the new access control and the advanced security management, ASM. Man, I'll tell you what, we could spend another hour doing a demo of that. Listen, if there's, from a security standpoint, if you guys haven't had somebody take you through a real demo of ASM and what it can do for you in improving your security posture, get a hold of your account teams, get a hold of one of your specialists, and dive into it. It's worth looking into. I got to tell you, it's one of the pieces that I'm most impressed by. We also look at the Delve Analytics we talked about, or the My Analytics, and Power BI Pro. As a matter of fact, I just had a session this morning, and we had one yesterday during a regular office hours call that I do, where we had a customer go through what they're doing in a K-12 with Power BI and SharePoint apps, and they're using Power BI Pro with all their faculty staff, and it's really amazing the way they've empowered all of their staff members to have real-time access to data about some of the simplest things that they could never get to before. And then we talk about Cloud PBX and PSTN conferencing and PSTN calling and Skype for Business. But you know what? I'm not going to really get into those. I'm going to let Victor do that in just a minute. Before I do so, though, I want to just call out how this pricing works, right? Because everybody immediately starts to wonder, what is this really going to cost me? How do I put this together? Well, here you go. Here's the real breakdown. You can buy each of these features individually, right? A la carte, if you will. And maybe, hey, if you only need one of these, great, go for it. If advanced threat protection is the component you need and that's all you need and that's all you want, it's there. It's $1.40 per user per month. But the reality is when you start looking at this and how you're going to utilize this stuff, by the time you look at Power BI Pro and how you're licensing Office already and customer lockbox, these different things, really you're only looking at buying a couple of these, and you very easily exceeded the cost of simply buying the full E5 suite. So this is just one of those slides I'd love everybody to take a minute, look at, and really understand the value of buying these together and being able to really improve your quality of service you're delivering to your end consumers, right, within your educational institutions. So I want to call out next steps before we bring Victor on here for the second half of this, where we're really going to go into a deep dive. So any of you at the end of this can stay around, ask all the questions that you want to. We're going to do our best to answer whatever you throw at us. But I'm going to encourage each of you to go and engage in a customer immersion experience. If you haven't already checked out E5 or went through a real trial through this, what we find out is many times when people trial the technology or they just put the licenses into their tenant, they don't get the opportunity to really test out each of the different features and components of the E5, because it is quite complex and it does take a little bit of time to learn some of it. But with the customer immersion experience, you'll get an opportunity in a course of a few hours to really get to see how all this works and how it would work for you and your particular organization. I think once you've gone through that, then it's a great time to really start looking at, what do I need to do to get a POC up and running, right? Some kind of a proof of concept going. And so you can absolutely engage with like our fast track and start doing some onboarding, with just a handful of licenses. You can get started today to really build out a true POC, either in a trial tenant or in your production environment. So the great thing is, as education customers, it's very easy for you to set up trial tenants and test tenants. And so I put a link into the IM window for you guys where you can go and actually sign up. There's an academic trial that's over there that you can work with and start working with Office 365 E5 today. So please, these are just kind of the next steps for you guys. Where do you go from here? And at this point, what I want to do is actually move into, unfortunately, that's a picture of me. That was supposed to be a placeholder. Now that I'm fully embarrassed, I'd like to introduce another one of my colleagues, and just an amazing individual who can take you guys far deeper down this path and help answer the questions you might have. Victor, if you don't mind, can I hand it over to you, buddy?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you, Preston. So I'll take over as a presenter, if you don't mind. Welcome, everyone. My name is Victor Shumsky, and I'm Skype for Business Solution Specialist, covering education for half of the United States. And you guys already heard from Bob Williams, who is my counterpart, who is covering eastern part of the United States. Just a couple of words about me. I've been with Microsoft about 8 years, covering Skype for Business and Link in the past, and OCS and all the other names that we had for our unified communication products. And prior to that, I was telecommunications manager for about 10 years. And before that, I deployed PBXs for more years than I wanted to count. So my background is in telephony. And I want to start my conversation with you guys today with a little story that I kind of experienced myself. About 10 years ago, I was managing telephony infrastructure for a global company. We had about 27 offices worldwide. I think I had 24 PBXs, most of them Nortel, some of Avaya, a couple of Cisco, a couple of Mitels here and there. And we decided we're going to go and upgrade all of our telephony infrastructure from TDM to voice over IP. And we did it. It took us about a year. I think it cost us about $2 million. And in the end of that project, users came to me and they showed me these new shiny phones that we put in their desks, and they said, so what can we do with these new phones that we couldn't do with the old phones? And my answer was, well, you can pick up a receiver and make a phone call. And it's a joke, of course, to a certain degree, but to a certain degree it is true. The voice over IP, and I think folks from University of Pittsburgh kind of echoed that, the voice over IP, or VoIP, somehow people call it, didn't really bring that much productivity gains to enterprise or to education as some people expect it to. So what we're talking about today, we're talking about unified communications and how Skype for Business sort of fits into that picture, right? So there's really three different pieces that we're going to discuss today in regards to Skype for Business and how it looks like. First one is a PSTN conferencing. So most of you, and I hope most of you already have Skype for Business Online deployed and as a part of your Office 365 free education SKU, and I'm hoping that most of you are already using instant messaging and presence and point-to-point calling. What PSTN conferencing does, it gives you an ability to add a phone number to your Skype for Business meeting invite. And matter of fact, if you look at this invitation, seems like a lot of you use that to join this call today, because some of you joined via the phone. We do have this service globally. I think we have PSTN dial-in conferencing today, if I remember correctly, in 50-plus countries. By the way, I added a Word document to this meeting. You guys are more than welcome to download it. There are some very helpful links that have to do with Cloud PBX, PSTN conferencing, PSTN calling, how to set it up, what countries do we cover, what is the consumption billing, and stuff like that. So if you haven't done it, please go ahead and download that document. It has some pretty important links that you can go and take a look afterwards. So PSTN conferencing, I think it's a last piece of the puzzle, or one of the last pieces of the puzzle that we bring into online world. And of course, we had it with Skype for Business Server for quite some time. But I personally joining most of my Skype for Business meetings via IP, and our global data set that we collect shows us that about 95% of people globally, when they join in Skype for Business meeting, in fact, joining those meetings via IP, whether they're using Skype for Business client or they're doing via the browser, but it's an IP join. However, the last 5% are very important. I call it sort of a cabin in the woods scenario. You're in the cabin in the woods. There is no IP connectivity, but there is a phone on the wall, and you want to participate in the meeting. You can always pick up that phone and dial in. So it is a very important piece of the puzzle. So that's kind of PSTN conferencing piece. And I think Preston already showed you the slide with the pricing. It is part of the Office 365 E5 SKU if you buy it as a part of the E5 SKU, or you can also buy it as a standalone at $1.50 a user a month. And to me, former telecommunication manager, that is a huge value. I remember paying AT&T bills for an AT&T, and then we had Intercall, I think, one of our teleconferencing providers. It was in tens of thousands of dollars. For the company, they had 2,000 employees. And I think one of the examples today with the customer, they talked about how their conferencing bill essentially shrunk to zero, and they're using Skype for Business PSTN conferencing instead. So the Cloud PBX is actually a much more complicated piece of the puzzle. It is also part of the Office 365 EDU SKU. And since my background is in telephony, I'll spend a little bit more time on that. I'm hoping some of you guys know telephony, but if you don't, I'll try to explain it to you, kind of like I explained to some of my colleagues at Microsoft who don't have a telephony background. So when it comes to PBX, I usually say, well, PBX, it's a box, that sits in some broom closet, usually. Hopefully it's not a broom closet. Hopefully it's a data center of some kind. And it has a switching function. So It is a switch. We used to call it a switch, except it's not a data switch, it's telephony switch. It has phones connected to it on one side, or your devices, we call them, the phones, or the maybe attendant console, and it has trunks, which is your dial tone connected to it from another side. And all it does switching. And it also gives you some management functionality. You can restrict some calling policies, you can manage your users, you can manage your routing. So there is a tool set of management that is attached to the PBX. So when it comes to Cloud PBX, that is exactly what that is. For those of you who are familiar with us and our UC journey, we had a server in this space for quite some time, going back 11 years. So then we took that switching concept that we had in Skype for Business server, or Link server, if you want to call it that, and we put it in the cloud. So it is how it sounds. It is a switching in the cloud, and it gives you ability to take devices, and University of Pittsburgh talk about that, whether it's a soft client that sits on your desktop or maybe on your mobile, or you have a physical device, which we have quite a few to pick from, that could be connected to the Cloud PBX. And you can use that device to make and receive phone calls. So that's kind of the Cloud PBX piece. We are constantly improving our Cloud PBX experience. I personally been on Cloud PBX now for, I think, 10 months. I've been switched to Cloud PBX from my Skype for Business on-premises deployment that we had in Microsoft. And I think, if I remember correctly, we have about 60,000 people on Cloud PBX now, and we have about 60,000 people who are still on the dedicated Skype for Business server deployment inside of the Microsoft organization. For me personally, it didn't change much. Matter of fact, I've been switched, and then I've been told that I've been switched from the server to the cloud. So for my mode of operations, nothing have changed. I have been using the same headset, and I'm going to turn on my video, and hopefully some of you who joined this call via Skype for Business see me. I'm still using the same headset that I used with Skype for Business server. So for me, not much have changed. So still using the same headset. I work from home primarily, and I travel quite a bit. So, and that's, I think, one of the huge benefits of being connected to the cloud. Regardless where I am, I should be able to bring out my laptop, connect, and operate from any place. So that's kind of the one thing. The second thing, and I think University of Pittsburgh kind of hit on that quite a bit. If you think about telephony, and if you look at the phone that sits on your desk today, and you look at your mobile phone, or you look at your laptop, or you think at your sort of a slate device, whether it's a iPad, or you maybe have Android slate device, or maybe a Windows slate device. If you look at the technology progress that's been made in the mobile area and in the computing area, it's mind-boggling, right? So we switch devices very often, the technology moving forward, and yet you have, sometimes 15, sometimes 20-year-old phone on your desk, a bunch of sticky notes on it. So we don't talk about it enough, but my kids, for example, and we are in education after all, they don't even use a regular phone the way we used to use it. I have a couple of phones in my house. They never pick it up. They always using texting. They doing video. And Skype for Business brings that technology into the telephony world, if you will, right? So that's the Cloud PBX. The next one is PSTN calling. So as I mentioned, Cloud PBX is one piece of the puzzle. It's a switching piece. The second piece of the puzzle is the dial tone, right? For those of you who is in telephony game, know what the dial tone is, what the trunks are. And if you have your normal PBX that sits in your data center, you have your
I don't know. It should have a volume thing, huh?
Yeah. Sorry.
Okay, somebody's talking to me back, and that's fine. You guys can do *6 to mute yourself if you have a phone, or you can just mute yourself. So the trunking is the normal part of the telephony solution. It's usually provided by your local trunking provider, whether it's an AT&T or Verizon, or maybe it's a level 3. So Microsoft is a telephony company. We became a regulated telco about a year and a half ago, and we can provide you with quote-unquote dial tone, except when it comes to Cloud PBX, it's not really a dial tone. It's not something that you can take your meter and measure the voltage between tip and ring. We don't bring you a PRI or T1 or the SIP trunk. The way it works, when you have a Cloud PBX, we give you a calling plan, right? And to think about calling plan, the easiest way to think about it is just like you have a cell phone. It's your device, so call that equal to Cloud PBX. And you have your calling plan, just like you have with your mobile device. So the way it works, you can buy a calling plan, and it comes with bucket of minutes. It comes with the phone number in your territory that you can pick from. Or, as Bob mentioned with University of Pittsburgh, you can port one of your existing phone numbers, just like any telcos. You can port it from your existing deployment to us. And what it does, it gives you an ability to set up full functioning office in a matter of minutes. I remember I was opening up a new office in UK about 10 years ago. It was about 6 months engagement. By the time I ordered the trunks from BT, by the time I bought equipment from the Nortel and equipment was installed and connected to the trunks and configured, it was about 6 months process. So with the Cloud PBX and PSTN calling, you can literally set up a new office in the location where we have a PSTN calling in probably about 10 minutes. You should be able to set up a new office. You should be able to set up a greeting, the front end for the new office, allocate new phone numbers to people, and those people should be able to start to receive and make phone calls from those phone numbers in about 10 minutes. It takes about 10 minutes to set up. PSTN calling as a service is not available globally, but we're in the United States. It certainly is available in the United States. We do have several PSTN calling plans at various price points and various number of minutes. Inside each of those plans, minutes are pooled together, which is kind of nice. So if you have, 10 $12 plans, each of them has 3,000 outbound minutes, all long distances included. If you buy 10 of those, now all of a sudden you have 30,000 minutes that you can share. So that's the PSTN calling piece. And again, combine it with Cloud PBX, it gives you an ability to set up quite quickly, migrate your existing phone numbers to us, or maybe pick a new phone number. Maybe you are opening a new office or new campus in different location. It makes that proposition very easy. Another piece which is not on the slides that comes out very often in the conversation is, well, this is all great, Cloud PBX, but what happens if we have an existing PBX and we want to integrate with it, or for example, we have existing PBX and we have a contract with our existing telco. Matter of fact, those contracts are quite often assigned, and they're usually long-term, usually between 4 and 5 years. Case in point, Microsoft just signed our telco contract here locally with Quest in Seattle for 5 years, about a year and a half ago. So, and that's not a problem. Because with the Cloud PBX, you can use what we call on-premises PSTN connectivity. And that's where sort of the hybrid architecture comes to place, right? What you can do on moving forward basis, you can say, okay, I'm going to set up my Cloud PBX. I'm going to put 100 users in the cloud using Cloud PBX features, but I don't want to use Microsoft PSTN calling, or maybe I will use it for some of my users. But for the bulk of my users, I have a contract with Verizon for my trunking, for my long distance, for my DIDs, and that is absolutely fine because you can connect your Cloud PBX with your existing on-premises PSTN connectivity today using a piece called Cloud Connector, and that's a piece of software that is downloadable from us. We wrote it, and that Cloud Connector essentially works as a glue between your Cloud PBX users and on-premises PSTN connectivity. For what we see in most large organizations, they do prefer to go hybrid route, where they have some users in the cloud and using Microsoft PSTN connectivity out of the cloud, and some users are maybe in the cloud but using still existing on-premises PSTN connectivity because they're in transition. What it gives you additionally, that's hybrid configuration, it gives you additionally ability to integrate with your existing PBX. And for some customers, it's very important because it is not an overnight transition. You guys heard from University of Pittsburgh. They have various PBXs, various ages of those PBXs, and those PBXs are not going to go away tomorrow, even though they're migrating, 10,000 people or whatever the number was to Cloud PBX. So it's going to be a period of time, and maybe quite long period of time, where Cloud PBX will be coexistent with their former sort of a telephony equipment, whether it's Avaya or it's a Nortel or maybe it's an older version of Cisco or maybe it's a Mitel. I'm working right now with University of Minnesota systems. They have 31 colleges that we're working with, and they're trying to formulate the strategy for their telephony and unified communication going forward. Each of those colleges are in the different phase of their telephony. Some replaced their telephony solution a couple of years ago, and they're just fine. Some have all the Nortel PBX that is on their last leg, and they have to be replaced immediately. And some in sort of the medium term. So I think what folks from the University of Pittsburgh said, and it was very important, you have to take a step back and you take a look at the big picture, where you as educational institution want to be, not just today and not just tomorrow, but 5 years from now. You still want to be in the PBX or server maintenance business, or maybe you want to be in the consumption model, just like Exchange Online, but for telephony, where you consume your resources and we take care of the sort of the back end. I'm going to pause. I think I covered all the slides. I really would like to leave some time for questions, if there are any questions. And this is certainly not a deep dive to telephony. I only had like 10 minutes. It takes quite a long.
We're going to stop recording, so feel free to ask. We'll do that now.